In the 1930s, Universal Pictures defined the horror genre with its iconic monster films. This was the era when Frankenstein, Dracula, and other unforgettable creatures became legends of the silver screen. This video is a continuation of our series on the greatest films of the 20th century. Links are in the description.
Van Helsing, a most distinguished scientist whose name we know, even in the wilds of Transylvania.
The first Universal monster was none other than the iconic Count Dracula, portrayed by Bela Lugosi in Todd Browning's adaptation. Browning, often regarded as a pioneer of American horror, originally intended the role for legendary actor Lon Chaney, who was eager to play Dracula. Tragically, Chaney passed away from throat cancer shortly before filming began. The role then went to the relatively unknown Bela Lugosi, a Hungarian actor whose English was far from perfect. Despite this, Lugosi's performance catapulted him to stardom, making him as synonymous with classic Hollywood horror as Boris Karloff. Another noteworthy figure behind Dracula was German cinematographer Karl Freund, who had previously worked with Fritz Lang on Metropolis. Freund often stepped in as an uncredited director during Browning's frequent absences from the set. Dracula also marked the beginning of one of cinema's earliest long-running franchises. Its massive commercial success spawned sequels, such as Dracula's Daughter and Son of Dracula, as well as crossover films like House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, which brought the Count together with Frankenstein's monster and the Wolfman.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
He's only a few days old, remember. So far, he's been kept in complete darkness. Wait till I bring him into the light. Here he comes.
The stitched-together creature from Mary Shelley's novel was originally meant to be played by Dracula star Bela Lugosi. However, creative differences between Lugosi and director James Whale led to the role ultimately going to Boris Karloff, who delivered an unforgettable performance that became timeless. Makeup artist Jack Pierce, responsible for the monster's iconic look, came up with the idea of flattening the top of the creature's head to accommodate a brain transplant, resulting in the now famous rectangular head shape. It was also Whale who introduced the concept of bringing the monster to life with an electrical charge, a detail not found in Shelley's original novel. The film's influence endures to this day, inspiring countless reinterpretations and homages, such as Tim Burton's animated feature Frankenweenie.
Have we not met before, Miss Grosvenor?
No, I don't think so. I don't think one would forget meeting you out of
The same German cinematographer Karl Freund, who played a significant behind-the-scenes role on Universal's Dracula, stepped into the director's chair for another classic monster film, the first ever The Mummy. The story follows the mummy Imhotep, accidentally awakened from his millennia-long slumber by a group of archaeologists who unknowingly read an ancient resurrection spell. Imhotep becomes obsessed with finding his long-lost love, whom he believes has been reincarnated in the body of a modern woman. Sound familiar? This plot was faithfully repeated in the 1999 remake starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, though the tone shifted to a comedic adventure rather than horror. The original, however, was far darker and more dramatic, with the focus squarely on Imhotep himself. Boris Karloff, fresh off his iconic performance in Frankenstein, brought the tormented mummy to life in a way that remains haunting to this day.
It's like a horrible dream. It's like being back on the island again.
Now, it's all right. Don't worry. I'm going to stay right here with you.
We're all familiar with the 1976 King Kong starring Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges, and perhaps even more in love with Peter Jackson's 2005 version with Naomi Watts and Adrian Brody. But it all began in the 1930s during a time when fascination with prehistoric creatures was as strong as the era's Egyptomania. It was then that Marion C. Cooper, a former military pilot and filmmaker, and Edgar Wallace, a war correspondent and screenwriter, decided to bring the classic Beauty and the Beast tale to life. Their story followed an adventurous expedition to a mysterious island inhabited by a giant prehistoric gorilla. What set their King Kong apart was their decision to depict the gorilla not merely as a monstrous brute, but as a tender, love-struck being captivated by feminine beauty, a theme that defined the entire film. The iconic closing line of the original King Kong captures this perfectly. It wasn't the airplanes, it was beauty killed the beast. Interestingly, the concept wasn't entirely original. It borrowed from Ingagi, an obscure earlier film about island natives worshipping a giant gorilla to whom they sacrificed women. However, it was King Kong that became a monumental pop culture phenomenon. On top of its storytelling, King Kong was a technical marvel. Director Marion C. Cooper made cinematic history by pioneering the traveling matte technique, a method of combining live-action footage with stop-motion animation. This innovation allowed live actors and miniature monster models to share the same frame, creating some of the most memorable visuals of the era.
And a whole day's work ruined by a foolish, ignorant woman. There must be a way back. God knows there's a way back.
Another iconic Universal monster, the Invisible Man, is based on the novel by legendary science fiction writer Herbert George Wells. Directed by James Whale, the mastermind behind Frankenstein and later Bride of Frankenstein, this early sound horror classic tells the tragic story of a scientist who becomes completely invisible after a risky laboratory experiment. Blinded by his newfound powers and a thirst for absolute control, the scientist's descent into madness introduced audiences to a striking and unforgettable image. A man wrapped in bandages and wearing dark glasses, beneath which there's nothing, a haunting metaphor for inner emptiness. Initially, Universal wanted Boris Karloff, star of Frankenstein and the Mummy, to play the invisible scientist, but rumors suggest he turned down the role over a salary dispute. By sheer luck, the part went to English actor Claude Rains, whose commanding and expressive voice caught the attention of the production team. Though a newcomer to Hollywood and already middle-aged, Rains brought an unforgettable presence to the role of the bandaged madman, a brilliant yet arrogant genius doomed to destruction. This role marked the beginning of Rains' successful Hollywood career. This Universal classic laid the groundwork for the studio's later hit, The Wolfman, 1941. The story follows a botanist who travels to Tibet in search of an extremely rare plant that blooms only under the moonlight. While there, he is attacked in the dark by a mysterious creature. Upon returning to London, he discovers that he too transforms into a savage, bloodthirsty wolf. The only thing that can suppress his transformation is the extract of the lunar flower he sought. Werewolf of London holds the distinction of being the first surviving film about lycanthropy, or werewolves. An earlier Universal production, the 1913 silent short horror, The Werewolf, told the story of a vengeful woman with a wolf alter ego. Unfortunately, that film was lost in a fire, leaving Werewolf of London as the earliest werewolf movie still in existence.